Hello and good morning. It is not Monday, by the way, even though I am here, Jillian. It is not a Steam Monday. It is actually a Friday. Believe it or not, we've made it to the end of the Blur's Day week. What a Blur's Day week it was. I think my brain never recovered from thinking that Saturday was Monday and has since just trying desperately to compute ever since, and more or less failing to do so. It's been quite a week over for the Cosmo Quest folks, and Dr. Pamela has a day of Daily Space and Astronomy Cast, and Community Coffee was just one stream too many. So today I decided to just pop in and bring you into the morning. I've noticed in the chat that everybody's talking about Memorial Weekend and snow, neither of which exist where I am. Basically, here it's Eid weekend, and today it was 44 degrees Celsius. So we all have different climates, isn't it wonderful? So today I thought it'd be a fun thing to do. Basically, in the last, let's say, 6 months, I got on a bit of a rampage and bought a lot of science-related books. Usually I read fiction entirely, but I decided, for whatever reason, I wandered into one of the best bookstores here in Lahore, which is called Readings, and it's amazing. And I walked out with like 4 science-related books. And that collection has now grown to 6, plus 1 on an ebook. So I thought it would be interesting to share some of the reviews from those books and give you something to read on Memorial Day weekend and the upcoming socially distant beach vacations that hopefully we can have in the future. Socially distancing, of course. So let's just jump into it. If you guys have comments or other books to add to the list, put them in the chat. So we're going to start with the Timekeepers. This is the first book on the list. Basically, my first Steam submission, whatever it's called, the thing that goes out into the streaming universe. The first time I did it was with Paul Matsutter, the astrophysicist. You guys, I'm sure, have heard of him. If you haven't, look him up. He's got some great stuff. But he was talking about consulting on dance, of contemporary dance performance, all about time. And so this is, it's called Timekeepers, How the World Became Obsessed with Time. One of the interesting things that he was talking about was how not just time as science and space related, but also time as the human impact of time, how we, how humans deal with time and all the different things that come of it. And this book is really kind of about that, how the world became obsessed with time. It's not really set up as a boring, history book. It's set up as different stories along the way, and it's written very well. So this is one that I actually really do recommend. I think it's very, it's well written, and it's something that, and it's a light read. Like it's dealing with a kind of heavy topic, but it's a light read. Timekeepers. So I don't know if I could give it a star, maybe 4.5 stars just for the fun of it. I really did like it. So the next book is not exactly what you would call light reading. It's called Not Even Wrong. I feel like these book titles might be backwards on the stream, but sorry if they are. I don't know how to fix that. It's Not Even Wrong: The Failure of String Theory and the Search for Unity in Physical Law. So this is it's a very mathematical book, basically, I think the best thing that I learned in reading this book was that I finally understood what physicists mean when they say symmetry, right? Is symmetry in relation to particle physics. This book actually explains the mathematical principles of that, and it's really interesting. So it definitely, like, I did have to take this in short, in short bits. Yeah, there are good sections, there are good stopping places in this, which is good because it really is, dense, but it's fascinating. And there's, I guess you could say these days, string theory is a bit out of vogue, but it still has its apologists. Probably if you're a string theory apologist, you might not want to read this book because it is quite critical of the theory. But it really is, it takes a very interesting critical look at it. And like I said, I learned what symmetry means, and I think that's awesome. And what broken symmetry means, actually. I know there's somebody in the CosmoQuest chat, broken symmetry, and I learned what that actually means in particle physics terms. So, not even wrong. The next book is actually also about quantum mechanics. Not Even Wrong does deal with quantum mechanics a lot, but this is a totally different book, totally different style. It's called In Search of Schrodinger's Cat. And this is about John, it's written by John Gribben. And this is kind of a story, it's a mathematical story about quantum mechanics, basically. So it really is, it's an interesting, how do I say it? It's kind of the same thing as Not Even Wrong, except that it's written in a more accessible way and in less detail. So I actually found that reading the two of them together was very useful, because the things that I couldn't quite the things that I couldn't quite get in Not Even Wrong, I could read in Search of Schrodinger's Cat, and then sort of put the two of them together and piece it together, which I thought was pretty cool. So this, it's kind of a lighter read, I guess you would say, about quantum mechanics, how it came about, the different and the different people, the different players that were part of it, and their mathematical contributions to the field. So Larry Weird was asking in the chat, does Voigt have anything to say about loop quantum gravity? And don't mind me cheating and reading the table of contents, because I don't actually remember. Standard model, blah, 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 blah. I don't think he does. It's not in the table of contents, and I don't remember reading particularly about it. Though I think it was mentioned briefly in the end of the book, but anyway, I'd have to read it again, basically, to tell you. So I'll just go back, give me a month or two to read it again, and then I'll let you know. So those two are kind of mathematical and a little bit technical. The next one is not at all, and it's a very easy read. And this is, I hope this is the next one. It's Neil deGrasse Tyson's Letters from an Astrophysicist. And this is not really about astrophysics. It's the various letters, emails, etc., that Neil deGrasse Tyson has received over the years and has responded to and put into this book. I don't always agree with the tone of the writing. I don't always agree with the philosophies behind it, but I did, I read it and it was entertaining enough. I think it's probably not my favorite of the stack that I'm talking about today, but it is interesting to see his perspective and some of the philosophies he talks about. And also, this particular cover, I just think is cool because it's my favorite color. And you say, don't judge a book by its cover, but you know, when they're pretty and it has your favorite color, what can you do? So that's that. Letters from an astrophysicist. Now, the next two in my series are really something totally different. And this kind of goes into some of the reading that I was doing more recently. This book, the next one is called Quantum Questions, Mystical Writings of the World's Greatest Physicists. Oh, thank you, the way it goes for the bits. That's awesome. I don't have dogs or cats or furniture or Cheerios, but I can do happy dances, basically. So thank you for the bits. Thank you so much. Anyway, so Quantum Questions is basically mystical writings. There's Heisenberg, Schrodinger, Einstein, de Broglie. That's not, how do you, I don't know, I bet you it's French. Jeans, Planck, Pauli, and Eddington. And it's basically their sort of musings on mysticism and how really there is no conflict between the work that they were doing, the groundbreaking work that they were doing in relativity and quantum physics and all of these things, but that it really had no conflict with a mystic version of the universe. And I just, I think that there's some really interesting writing in here. It's really interesting to read some of them obviously are more interesting than others. Some of them, I think my favorites were Eddington, because he's so funny. The writing is absolutely hilarious. And you wouldn't necessarily think of this kind of book as being funny, but I actually did, laugh about it. If, I could go dig into it and find, there's a few zingers too. He has a few, there's a few zingers. I see if I can find them. I think I can read a paragraph in fair use, so I want to read it just because I loved. This is kind of how he uses words. He's talking about what reality is, and he says, in physics, we can give a cold scientific definition of reality, which is free from all sentimental mystification. But this is not quite fair play because the word reality is generally used with the intention of invoking sentiment. It is a grand word for a peroration. I haven't heard that word before. The Right Honorable Speaker went on to declare that the concord and amity for which he had unceasingly striven had now become a reality. Loud cheers. The conception, which is so troublesome to apprehend, is not reality, but reality. Loud cheers. And he just has this interesting way of looking at stuff. Definitely, recommend this. The next book is definitely in the same. I was reading the chat and I got distracted. Excuse me. The next book is in the same line. It's called Superstition and Science, Mystics, Skeptics, Truth Seekers, and Charlatans. And it is kind of a look at history between 1450 and 1650, more or less, and how basically before that, religion and science were kind of stuck together, and then they diverged after that. Thank you, Tropical Tom, for the subscription. I will do another happy dance. So thank you so much. Anyway, Superstition and Science, this was also written very well. It's written in very much the same style as Timekeepers. So yeah, worth a read for sure. Now, second to last book on the list, and potentially my favorite. This is Vargik's Curious Cosmic Compendium. And again, I probably bought it just for the cover and for the title, because how can you resist a title that is so poetic and so full of alliteration as Curious Cosmic Compendium? And also I opened it and I saw the illustrations inside and said, I must have this book. And I read it once slowly, and I've been reading it again slowly, because there's so much information to take in. It's all illustrations about the world and how, and our relationship with space. There's a whole timeline of the universe. There's a scale of the universe. There's, the different heights of weather balloons and rockets and how high they go, for example, something like this, where the different kilometers and where different milestones have been. And it is just so pretty. Like nebulas, oh my God. Like every single page of this book is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And it's very informative. I am trying, so far somewhat unsuccessfully, I am trying to get the author of this book to come on the Steam show so I can talk to him about it. And let's see. I'm trying, but so far somewhat unsuccessful, but let's see. So cross your fingers that we can talk to this Curious Cosmic Compendium fellow about his beautiful illustrations and scientific ideas. The last book that we're going to talk about, I actually don't have the physical version of it. I had this as an ebook. It was called Stars Uncharted by S.K. Dunstall. Actually, there's two. There's Stars Uncharted and Stars Beyond, and they come in a series. And as far as I know, there's supposed to be a third one, because the second one ended at a place where I was like, there's definitely the authors, which it's a pseudonym for two authors. Definitely they're setting something up. Basically, on a first read, so yes, I had to read both of these twice. So because the first read was all about space battles and basically, space battles and evil corporations and all kinds of things coming and going and shooting and weapons and all this kind of stuff. And then I read it again and I found out that the characters were really interesting. The characters were, the story was really nuanced, and it was just worth a closer read than the first time I read it, which was find out what's going on. So those are your space recommendations. I guess there is, there are some questions. Pictures and conversions. Is that Larry Weird asked, pictures and conversions, is that in reference to the Superstition and Science book, or in the Curious Cosmic Compendium? The Superstition and Science is more about the philosophies and how kind of the divide between religion and science was really created during this time period that he's looking at, which was around the 15th, 16th centuries. Not so much about, conversions or anything like that. It's really more about the historical reasons that split. happened. And okay, and the Vargix, curious, if it was the Vargix one that you were asking about, this one is more about, it's just illustrations, really. It's kind of how the different, how different places in the universe and all this kind of thing. Conversations, a reference in Alice in Wonderland. Okay, all right. Which is a book that I actually haven't read. I mean, as a bookworm, that's very embarrassing. And Tropical Tom is asking, I witnessed beautiful dancing at front of a palace in Karachi, but the dance was all done by men. Are women allowed to dance in public in Pakistan? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense of in theaters and conferences, it's not very kosher for women to dance in the streets. Probably what you saw was Sufi dancing, which usually has kind of the whirling and Sufi dance is almost always done by men. So not 100%, but like 98% of the time. So yes, and then women do dance in public, probably less and not on the streets in open. I mean, I am a woman and I dance all the time, at conferences and in theaters and all this kind of stuff, and it's not an issue. There are some places and some theaters, some art councils in which women are not allowed to perform. And that's happened to me like twice. One, it was a Sufi performance, so that doesn't really matter anyway. And then one was that we did all, I was with a group and we got all the way to the place and we're ready to go on stage and they said, women are not allowed. So, but it's less common. It's less common. Honor killings are illegal, but still happens in Pakistan. Again, yeah, they do. But anyway, I won't get into politics too much in this. Let's just say I live here and things are fine. So that's fine. Trekker Kev has subscribed for 16 months in a row, which is awesome. So thank you so much for the subscription. Here's another happy dance. I think I'm gonna have to expand my repertoire every time this happens and get into, the funky disco dancing when this happens. Well, when you don't have dogs to entertain people or cats, you gotta make up for what you have. So that's really all I had for you today. Thank you for joining me on this. Well, it's Friday morning for most people. It's Friday night for me. And we're kind of, after 2 hours, we have the Daily Space, which is your daily space news roundup. And then sometime after that, I think it might be 2 hours after the Daily Space, is Astronomy Cast. That gets into late night for me, so I'm not usually around. But I do know that it's my Saturday morning breakfast radio show, watching Astronomy Cast. So thanks for joining and for your questions and for your bits and for your subs. This is how CosmoQuest exists. Thank you for your donations. CosmoQuest is a product of the Planetary Science Institute. We have every day of the week at 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 a.m. Community coffee. And community coffee is community coffee, which means that if anybody has some things they want to talk about, books they want to present, space books, reviews, space music, whatever you want to talk about, your observations, your space images, come on the show and talk about it. If I can do it, So can you. Today's session is being produced by Paranor, and as always, he is doing a wonderful job and makes my life super easy. Tropical Tom, thank you for the bits. That's I don't even know. I'm like, well, let's add my finger discos there. That's your happy dance for today. For now. So thank you guys, and we'll see you in 2 hours for the daily space.